Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Amazon I Choose You. That's right, I'm going to choose my Amazon for my starter character, said the person watching this video. And we are going to talk about why you might be right and why you might be wrong. I hope that this video will give you a better idea of whether or not you would like to choose an Amazon as your starter character. And as we go forward and talk about the changes that have been made to Amazon, as well as the potential uses of Amazon for various purposes, maybe you will make a decision. So first off, let's talk about the Amazon as a character. Does he require, or sorry, I said he, Amazon, does she require equipment? Is she a highly equipment-based character? And the answer to that question is kind of no. So believe it or not, the majority of the Amazon's abilities, with exception to multi-shot, strafe, and some of these abilities over here like jab, impale, and fend, most of the abilities on the Amazon tree can actually be utilized fairly effectively without any equipment. Freezing Arrow is a absolutely amazing elemental damage ability. Exploding Arrow is absolutely amazing as well, and Immolation Arrow has gotten quite a few buffs as well as a delay decrease, and may be a good choice as well in the future patches. We also have in the Javelin tree a very nice ability called Lightning Fury, which can be utilized with extreme proficiency, even if you have no synergies. Lightning Strike and Charge Strike are also fairly effective abilities if you would like to go with a melees on. They have also done a really good job beefing up Poison Javelin and Plague Javelin, as well as reducing the delays on them. So if you want to try out for the first time ever a Poison Javazon, that could very well be an interesting choice. And the reason why we're talking about this is because if you're choosing a Amazon as your starter ladder character, one of the things that you're probably going to want to do is build into a tree which is not so reliant on your equipment for damage. Charge Strike, Power Strike, and Lightning Strike, these three abilities right here, can be relatively great early game to get you the lightning damage that you need. Especially Power Strike, which is a relatively low level ability at only level 6. And then later on, Charge Strike, which is level 18, and when you get finally high enough to level 30, you can utilize Lightning Fury, which is absolutely amazing for the amount of damage it puts out. Lightning Fury actually makes a absolutely amazing Magic Find ability, because with relatively garbage equipment, you can still effectively Lightning Fury just fine. In fact, one of the things that I'd like to show you guys is that this character, who has basically no skills in Lightning Fury, can still do a fairly good job Lightning Furying things to death. And I've always had a lot of fun showing people this, because everybody's always so concerned with getting the maximum Lightning Fury equipment that they can possibly obtain, and I'm over here just with no points in Lightning Fury at all, just having fun with it. This character is actually something that is quite an oddity, and I can go over it very briefly with you guys. This character is actually known as a Valkyrie. So the entire purpose of this Amazon is not to actually have the skills themselves. Everything that I've done is to be pointed and focused at the Valkyrie herself. And the reason why I want to show you guys this is because the Valkyrie on the Amazon is one of the strongest tanks like in the game, bar none, and can pretty much take on the entire game by herself. It's absolutely hilarious. And I have spent a long time building this character specifically so that my Valkyrie is essentially the main character, and I'm kind of just the pawn. And the Valkyrie being such an amazing tank is an extremely huge part of what I would consider a optimal starter character for a ladder scenario. And there's a reason for this. And this has to do with the fact that ladder characters tend to be, obviously rather poorly equipped. They can't relatively do anything on their own, and when you are a poorly equipped peasant knight, having a very strong meat shield that you can summon at will to take on, say, Diablo or Duriel or any other number of monsters can be extremely powerful as a character. Having this creature that you can just at any point go, hey, go fight that thing over there. It's bothering me. So we have a character here who is very good by himself, or herself, sorry. The man is on. The man is on by himself. She's very good by herself, right? She can solo self-found just fine. She can usually clear normal difficulty and nightmare difficulty with ease. I have also built several characters that have dual spect, so I have built a freezing arrow / exploding arrows on, which does very well in hell difficulty. I have also built a freezing arrow / sort of multi-shot or strafe zons. They do very well in hell difficulty as well. The Valkyrie doesn't need to be an amazingly high level to get you what you need. Honestly, you only really need level 17 Valkyrie. That's the magic point at which Valkyrie becomes very, very powerful. So I would recommend trying to get your Valkyrie, with skill points, of course, to at least level 17. And when it comes to the javelin tree is pretty amazing as well, and there's a lot of fun stuff to do in here. I also need to point out that they have fixed dodge, avoid, and evade. So dodge, avoid, and evade do not interrupt your attacks anymore. I was playing around with this on the test server quite a bit, and I have noticed that these skills are just absolutely amazing now in every regard. You can now successfully build a melee Amazon, and it works very well. I have tested it. I have a lot of videos up on that testing out 2.4 public test realm. If you look through my live streams, I'm sure you'll see 2.4, PTR live streams, and it's all through there. I tested out Fend and Impale and Jab, and I tested out the reduced synergies of Lightning Strike and Charge Strike, and I found that I really, really enjoyed playing the melee Amazon now. Fend works extremely well now. It's way better than it has ever been before, and I'm actually looking forward to creating a Fend-zon. Impale is a lot better than it has ever been in the past, but I do still feel like it needs a little bit of work. It's still just a little bit too slow. But it is definitely leagues better than it was in the past. As for Charge Strike, Lightning Strike, and Power Strike, they used to require 4 synergies. So you needed to build Lightning Fury to max out the damage of Lightning Strike, Charge Strike, and Power Strike. And you no longer need to do that. They've taken away one of the synergies, so you can get away with doing without that, and it's actually pretty darn cool. So instead of having to build 4 different skills to max out Charge Strike or Lightning Strike, now you only have to build 3 skills, and that is a hell of a lot better. A hell of a lot better. So let me show you guys real quick the funniness of a no-skill Javazon, literally a no-skill Javazon, taking out the cows. As you can see, even with no skill points in Javazon, I can still do fairly well. And the key with Lightning Fury is not in the damage that you output. It is actually specifically in making sure that you pierce as many targets as possible. It's about making sure that you get your javelin off in the right direction, so that you have as many, and I mean as many, lightning bolts flying out as humanly possible, which does a massive, massive amount of damage. And that fanaticism guy right there is really hitting hard, isn't he? I want that mana potion. I don't have enough banta. Which is why I have this bow. I totally forgot. It's been a little while since I played this character. Specifically, I've stripped her of a lot of her equipment. She's using a Tyrael's Might, by the way, which is totally not the armor that she's supposed to be utilizing at this particular point in time. She has a lot more plus skill equipment. That's really what she's been running, like all plus skill equipment to get the Valkyrie as high as humanly possible. One of the things that they also did was they reduced the casting time on the Valkyrie. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but they basically took away was a massive. I'm trying to remember the number here. It used to be like, was it 5 seconds or something? What is it right now? Let's take a look and see what it is right now. So it's currently a delay of, it doesn't say.
Good day.
I also took the bow off my bow girl and all her equipment, by the way, so that may also be affecting things. I never seem to do anything properly, do I? Get everything prepped. One guy in one of my videos, he was like, you should get your stuff prepped in advance. And I'm like, that's a good idea, I guess. Or I could just wing it. Just wing it, boys. So when you cast your Valkyrie, you'll notice that there is a pretty long delay on recasting her. It turns red, and it stays red for a relatively long period of time. They took that down quite a large amount so that it's no longer so drastic. And I'm actually very glad that they did. Aha, my mana potion. Yes, come together. And if you're wondering, no, that's not redemption. That's actually Slain Monsters Rest in Peace. That is the Slain Monsters Rest in Peace effect that comes from Material's Might. Now, this particular character, Amazon, I think excels in just about every way that you can as a starter character. She has multiple options at her beck and call. She can go into the spear trade. She can go as a melee character. She can be a range character. She can be a very effective melee character, and she can be a very effective range character. She can be a physical damage range character, a physical damage melee character, an elemental damage melee character, and an elemental damage range character. It's just, it is a very, very awesome character to start out with, in my opinion, because you can start out as a melee character. You can utilize a regular spear in normal difficulty. You can use power strike and charge strike. You could go with a bow, and instead of utilizing any of these abilities at all, you could just take chip gems and put it in a bow, and for the most part you can do fairly well through all of like Act 1 and Act 2 difficulty until you find yourself some good equipment. You can also find a bow like Ravenclaw or something along like that, and it will give you free exploding arrow, and for a very long time, believe it or not, Amazon can do with relatively garbage equipment for quite a long period of time. And it's not until you get into Nightmare and Hell difficulty that you start to really need to min-max your equipment and get stuff like Titan's Revenge and Spirit and maybe even a Mage Wrath and interesting items that will help you along your journey. But the cool thing about this character is I feel like they get by with just the bare minimalist of equipment, and whatever you happen to find, you can make work. I mean, if you happen to find a Titan's Revenge early on, just, turn your character into a Javazon, or use it on your Spearzon, because believe it or not, it's a very good weapon even for a Spearzon. Like, if I was specifically building as a Fend Amazon and I found a Titans, I would not turn that down. I would put that Titans on, and I would put a good shield on my offhand, and I would utilize that for a very long period of time. If I was maybe a Javelin Amazon and I happened to find just the most godlike of bows, like maybe I found specifically a Wind Force at some point while I'm rolling through hell, I might actually use that on my character for a little while until I could find better equipment. And that's kind of like the cool thing when it comes to Amazon, is that you have two different trees. You can spec into both trees. You can actually be like a Freezing Arrow Amazon / Lightning Fury. You can even, build a Strafe now. In the PTR, no longer has a damage reduction. In fact, let's go over to the PTR, and I'd like to show you some of the changes to the Amazon. All right, so here we are on my test Amazon. And my test Amazon, of course, has maximum all skills, but that's okay. As you can see here down at the bottom, notice that the synergies for Lightning Strike and Charge Strike have been adjusted so they no longer include Lightning Fury, and the damage has been brought up to compensate. So they still do the same amount that they always did, but you no longer have to invest 80 points to max out Charge Strike. So now you can max out Charge Strike with only 30 points, or sorry, 30 points, 60 points into synergy, which is definitely very nice. Of course, plus the 20 on the skill. But it definitely is very nice to have 20 skill points freed up in that regard. Fend and Impale both have very nice changes. The damage buff to both of them was very nice, as well as the ability for Impale to always hit its target is definitely extremely nice. I made a couple very interesting items, like a Breath of the Dying Matriarchal Pike, so I could test out abilities like Impale and Fend. And let me go show you Impale and Fend now, because they definitely have been changed quite a bit, and I do feel like they are a lot more viable than they've ever been before. As you can see, that was me taking out Hell Eldritch, and that was actually really, really effective, especially considering I seem to be missing my Raven Frosts and my... I'm always stripping my characters of equipment. I log into them, and they're just like, oh, you know, who needs gear, and who needs rings, and who needs anything whatsoever? Here, let's just throw... there's a Bull Cathos, why not? So let's go, I'm going to show you Impale next. That was Fend. So Impale is still a little slow, I feel like, but it does do a pretty massive amount of damage. It no longer misses, either. And this is a very big benefit of Impale, is that literally it just no longer misses. So when you do hit a target, it smacks and it hurts really nice, really bad. My main issue with Impale still is it's just so slow. It really is just so slow. It's a one-hit ability, and it just doesn't really... go fast enough. Now, of course, you can speed it up. You can get a faster weapon, but that, of course, is going to bring down the available damage that you've got in the ability. I did actually kill the Ubers with Impale. If you check out one of my 2.4 videos, I go through the process of actually equipping a character specifically for Ubers and killing the Ubers with this character, which was very, very fun, honestly. It was extremely fun to do. I used all sorts of very interesting equipment, and let me see if I still have... Was that the faster one? I think this is the faster one. So the Matriarchal Spear, which, of course, I'm sure I'm butchering the word, is the faster version, but it does less damage. And let me test out this one as well. So let's go to Trap and Call. Why not? And even with the faster spear, I still feel like it's relatively slow. It's just, it needs to be sped up a little bit. Like by 50%. I feel like 50% speeding up this skill, like if it was just like a little bit faster, it could definitely be more useful. Of course, we've got a Holy Freeze monster here, making things a little bit more difficult. I do find that Fend is a lot more effective than Impale, but I don't necessarily hate Impale. It's almost like a duo partnership. Like, Fend doesn't hit multiple times on the same target, and it doesn't do a massive amount of damage. Whereas Impale does a massive amount of damage, but doesn't hit multiple times. And I feel like if you use them in concert together, if you use Fend and Impale together, you can generally get a much greater effect from it. So next, let's take a look at some of the other abilities. So we do have the Plague Javelin here, which is level 35. And as you can see, it does 44,000 damage to 47,000. And this one does 8,264 to 8,318. And I think the main difference between these two is that Poison Javelin is a very long duration of 76 seconds, whereas Plague Javelin is a very short duration of only 3 seconds. And this makes them a kind of a duo partnership. One is for, you know, throwing and things die over a relatively long period of time, and one of them is to do a pretty quick amount of damage over a short period of time. And one of the things that they did, which is definitely very nice, is they kind of removed the, what's it called? The casting delay link between the two, and it was one of the biggest issues with the ability in the first place. I don't know if you guys have ever actually used Plague Javelin before. I wanted to build one back in the day, and it was just untenable. The terrible nature of the casting delay between the two abilities made it next to impossible to actually utilize both of them at the same time. And so what you ended up what ended up happening was you basically just sat there and used one ability over and over again with a huge delay on it, which made it relatively hard to take advantage of. And I don't have any javelins on me, so I'm just going to grab some javelins. Could have sworn one of these guys usually has javelins on him.
Good to see you.
Nobody's got javelins, huh? There we go. We got some throwing spears. All right. I'll grab 2 of them just in case. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to play around with these abilities because I want you guys to see these. These are new. These are things that you could potentially be using in a starter ladder character. So it's definitely something to consider. So we have a Plague Javelin on our right click and Poison Javelin on our left click. And let's just go somewhere easy for right now just so we can get a good feel for it. So as you can see, no longer do we have to worry about the 2 skills interfering with each other. So we can fire off one skill and then quickly fire off the next skill, and we can fire them off in succession, which is definitely very nice. Let me take my torch out of this so that it's not clogging up the screen with fire effects. And the damage of the poison is not exactly terrible, and can be combined with some very nice pieces of equipment. Like, for instance, you can be using Trangul's Gloves for plus poison skill damage. You could be using Brambles for plus poison skill damage. You can also be using Poison Facets to increase the negative amount of poison damage on these. And of course, I could go even further, and I could be using Titans with plus the skills and things like that, and really up the damage even further. And when you utilize these against a target, especially the longer poison, you really start to see the poison just sort of massively tick away at a target. And I feel like there's a good use case scenario for both of them. So, you know, the longer poison is very good for just simply spreading out your damage across multiple targets. And the shorter poison is much better for taking out a target that is an immediate threat, or something like a boss that you would maybe want to hit over and over again. And it could be used in combination with other effects. I feel like the way that they have it set up now, the poison could very easily be stacked with Lightning Fury. You could build a Lightning Fury Zon, and you could also build poison, and you could use it as your secondary damage effect to take out monsters that were immune to lightning. It has a really nice AoE radius on it, as you can see. The larger damage poison, the one that has the shorter duration, has a very nice AoE effect on it. The one that has the really long duration, the 70-second duration, doesn't have the same sort of like massive AoE cloud, but it can be used very effectively in this manner, which is essentially by kiting. So you just kind of throw it and you back up, and you throw it and you back up. And because it is extremely skill-based damage, as you can see, I'm using an absolute garbage tier spear. I could even use this spear, which has even less damage, and you will see that I can still kill things. But enough talking about Poison Javelin. Let's talk about some other skills as well. So some of the other changes that they made, obviously, is the Dodge, Void, and Evade, which we already talked about. They also increased the radius on Inner Sight, making it a little bit more powerful to reduce the defense of monsters. They also added a really nice effect on slow missiles of damage reduced by 35%, which scales as you level it up. So it's right now it's at level 26, which means it has the damage reduced by 35%, which is just freaking amazing in my opinion. They really kind of wanted to give a reason for people to actually put points into slow missile, and damage reduced by is a very good reason. They also reduced the mana cost on a lot of the elemental bow skills to make it a lot easier to level up with. I don't know if you guys have ever actually tried to level up a elemental boson. But it is a very difficult task trying to keep your mana full. And one of the things that they did was reduce the overall mana cost. As you can see, Freezing Arrow at level 26 only costs 15.2 per cast. Immolation is 12.2, Exploding Arrow is 11.2, and Ice Arrow is 10.2. And as you can see, quite a lot lower than it used to be in the past. They also removed the penalty. So as you can see, multi-shot has a 75% weapon damage penalty. Strafe used to also have that same weapon damage penalty, and Strafe no longer has the weapon damage penalty, which makes Strafe a much more interesting choice in the future. We also got a very interesting change to Magic Arrow. So Magic Arrow used to only convert 1% per level, if I remember correctly. So it was 26% at level 26. And now it converts 55% physical damage to magic damage at level 26, which is pretty massive and does make Magic Arrow a very strong contender to take out physical immune targets, especially if you utilize a bow like Witch Wild String, which has level 20 Magic Arrow innately on it. So you don't even have to worry about having the mana to fire the ability or even having the skill points in the skill. You can just utilize a bow that has Magic Arrow on it to get the really awesome conversion effect. And I did use this quite a bit during my testing in PTR, and what I found is that the upping in the damage, the physical damage conversion to magic damage, was actually pretty amazing, and it did make for very easy killing of physical immune monsters. I wouldn't use it on a regular basis, but anytime I came across a physical immune monster, I pulled out Magic Arrow, and Magic Arrow handled it quite nicely. They also reduced the delay on Immolation Arrow, and I'd like to show you that. I'm pretty sure I have a bow in here I can use. I've got a couple bows, actually. Several faith bows, apparently. And one of the things that they did with Immolation Arrow was they reduced the cooldown on it so that it's not so ridiculously difficult. It also no longer reds out Exploding Arrow, so if you are building Exploding Arrow and Immolation Arrow together, you will notice that you will be more easily able to spam a couple Exploding Arrows in between your Immolation Arrows, which is definitely very nice. Immolation Arrow, unfortunately, has the fire effect underneath of it, which is both a good and a bad thing. And one thing that I've noticed is that if you have knockback on a bow, the knockback knocks the monster out of the fire effect, which is not good. And you might want to avoid knockback if you're building Immolation Arrow. Now, being able to spam Immolation Arrow would be a lot nicer, I feel like. The current delay of 1 second feels a little bit too long, and I don't want to see them just completely remove the delay because I feel like that would be too overpowered, but I'd like to see them cut that delay in half. I feel like 0.5 seconds would be a little bit better than 1 second and would make the ability a little bit more usable than it currently is. Because I worked out the numbers, and I did kind of feel like Exploding Arrow is still the superior choice over Immolation Arrow, and I kind of get that what they're trying to get you to do is they're trying to get you to use both. And it does feel like using both is a lot more viable now than it ever was before. Especially if you're doing a dual build. So if you happen to be doing a fire/cold build, which is very effective. There's very few monsters in the game that you will come across as a fire/cold Amazon that you will not be able to kill. Because the reason is because you have physical damage from the bow, you have the ice damage from Freezing Arrow, and then you have the exploding damage from the Exploding Arrow. So you literally have 3 different elements, and you usually will never come across a monster that is immune to 3 different elements at the same time. The only exception really is the Ubers. Amazon also has the very amazing Guided Arrow, which can be utilized to kill Ubers, bosses, and all sorts of creatures because it does not miss. You can utilize items that have Crushing Blow and things like that, which will be very effective. But all in all, as a starter character, I do feel like Amazon is a very strong choice. You have a lot of elemental damage attacks. You have a lot of different choices, different elements. You've got ice, you've got fire, you've got physical damage, you've got poison damage, you've got lightning damage. I mean, you have pretty much every single element, including magic damage. Not many characters in the game can literally dish out every single element in the game, and Amazon is one of those characters that can literally dish out every element in the game, including a very nice amount of magic damage. Now that they have a really awesome magic arrow like this. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, and I would like to hear what you have to think about the Amazon as a starter class. Have you done Amazon as your starter ladder class before? How did it go? Do you think it's a terrible choice? Do you think it's a good choice? Let me know down in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching.